All right, and welcome back. We have breaking news tonight on the investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia here at this congressional game. The Washington Post reporting Special Counsel Robert Mueller is now investigating the finances and business dealings of Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, senior advisor. This comes, of course, after Kushner previously, we reported, was under scrutiny over meetings with Russia's ambassador to the United States and the head of a Russian state-owned bank who had trained at a top Russian spy school. Horowitz broke the story. Your headline, Special Counsel investigating Jared Kushner's business dealings, literally just breaking here this hour. What have you learned?
Well, we've learned that the investigation is widening again. We learned last night there were obstruction of justice charges possibly being considered by Special Counsel Mueller. And tonight what we're learning is that they are looking into the finances and business dealings of Jared Kushner. Now, again, in the end, there may be no charges that come out of this investigation, but we know they are looking at business and financial dealings as they are with other Trump associates.
Now, Jared Kushner in particular obviously had meetings with Sergei Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, and also a meeting with the head, Gorkov, the head of one of the top banks in Russia, a Putin insider.
Exactly.
Someone who was trained at Putin's Sky School. Is this obviously a relationship or a meeting of particular significance as far as you know?
Well, we don't know. This is what Special Counsel Mueller and his team are looking at. And Jared Kushner, as lawyer, has said tonight that he is willing to speak to Hill investigators and also anyone else investigating his finances and his dealings with the Russians.
This is obviously hugely significant, for many reasons. It's Jared Kushner, it's the president's son-in-law, it's business dealings, but it also shows an investigation that the president had hoped would be very narrow in scope is now possibly, as you point out, getting significantly broader, right? We all remember Whitewater started off as Whitewater and ended up with the president's sexual exploits in the Oval Office. This is getting bigger, not smaller.
Exactly, and President Trump tweeted today, the biggest political witch hunt in American history. Pretty angry, I think, about the news about possible obstruction.
Yeah.
And I think he said after Comey testified that he felt vindicated because Comey said he wasn't under investigation.
Oh, he said he felt completely vindicated, right?
Exactly.
Now, Gloria, you've had a chance to talk to Jared's lawyers today.
I haven't
Jamie
yet.
Gorelick?
I haven't
Not
yet.
since this report.
I haven't yet, but I have... since Jared's name came up in all of this. And what his people say is that Jared Kushner was the person who was the point man for foreign policy people, and that what he wanted to do was establish what they call a back channel to Russia. And that was why he met with Kislyak, and that was why he met with Gorkov. And, you know, we have since learned about a back channel that seemed to be turning into something more of a secret channel, and where we...
So communications that Jared Kushner was leading, possibly even going to the Russian embassy, right?
Your story makes an awful lot of sense, given the fact that Jared Kushner was sort of the epicenter during the transition for diplomats, for people who wanted to get in touch in some way, shape, or form with the incoming administration. And he did have these Russia meetings.
And Chris, obviously the significance of this news story, you can't be underestimated here. The president, obviously now, they're looking at personal obstruction of justice by Bob Mueller, his son-in-law. It can't get any closer than the president of the United States and his top advisor and his daughter's husband.
Yeah, no, it can't, and Sari makes this point, and I think it's the important point, which is this is why politicians live in fear of special counsels, because it often goes like this, not narrow, right? It gets wider. The reporting last night out of the Washington Post about obstruction of justice to me is of huge import in that we've talked about Trump aides, we've talked about Trump allies, we've talked about former Trump staff. Who we've never talked about in terms of being investigated is Donald Trump. We are now talking about that. That makes it fundamentally different. Donald Trump's reaction to this is his reaction to many things, which is dismiss, detract, move,
right?
Right. Run it down.
Telling your story today, phony collusion with the Russian story that he said you made up.
But I would note, I'll defend Sari so she doesn't have to. I would note neither Donald Trump nor the White House took any issue with it. Mark Corallo, who is a spokesman for Mark Kasowitz, the personal attorney, said the leaks coming out of the FBI. Okay, but that's fine and a fair point. But again, that has nothing to do with the details of the story.
I think it's wrong to say that this is just a broad fishing expedition. They have to go broad before they go narrow. They have to look at everything and then focus in on what is
Right.
potentially criminal and what is not.
Yeah.
And so that's how these investigations.
All right, well, congratulations, sorry, on all of that incredible reporting. Of course, we are live at Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. Democrats and Republicans right now are facing off on the field at the charity baseball game. The House Speaker Paul Ryan, the House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi were there smiling together. They're now with Jake Tapper for their first ever joint interview. Jake?
Aaron, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm sitting here with Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, Republican of Wisconsin, and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California. If you're wondering about their outfits, the Louisiana insignias are in honor of Congressman Steve Scalise, who's still in the hospital, and Speaker Ryan's also wearing a Capitol Police shirt for this amazing event of bipartisanship. Thanks so much for being here for your first ever joint interview. We appreciate it. Speaker Ryan.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, we looked at this.
I didn't even know that.
You should feel free to come by Sunday morning. We got another one maybe. So let me just ask you, Speaker Ryan, because Steve Scalise is a good friend of yours, and President Trump said today that he's in a fight here. This must be very tough on a personal level.
Yeah, it is. We spend every day together, working together. Our families are close. Our staffs are very close. He's in the hospital. He's recovering. He's got a ways to go. We're all praying for him. Jennifer and the kids are here. He is a baseball player, so he was supposed to start second base today. So he is being missed. We're all praying for Steve and the family. He's getting the support they need. And he's going to recover. It's just going to take him some time.
And your moment, your speech on the floor of the House yesterday, I can't believe it was only yesterday, but your speech, it was almost as if there were no parties anymore. It was just members of the House of Representatives, Americans.
Well, it is. We're all close to Steve Scalise. He's a lovely person. But this game is a game where we always come to have fun, root for everybody to do their very best, and hope that our team wins. Tonight, we're all Team Scalise. And it's interesting for us because our pitcher is our best player, Cedric Richmond.
He's the best player of all the Republicans and Democrats in their picture.
And he and Steve are very, very close
They're very
friends.
tight friends.
They're very close friends. In fact, the Republicans said, since Steve can't play tonight, why don't you give up Cedric?
Give up Cedric. We'll take him.
Nice. I'm sure. I heard he can throw the ball at 80, 85 miles an hour.
Good.
Let me ask you a question that I know is on the minds of a lot of your members, which is, are we in an age now where members of Congress need to have security with them at all times? Speaker Ryan?
Well, it's a tough age. It's a partisan, polarized country. What we're trying to do is tone down the rhetoric, lead by example, and show people we can disagree with one another. We can have different ideas without being vitriolic, without going to such extremes. And so that's what we're trying to demonstrate here. And members of Congress have got to get out and see their constituents. They've got to interact with their constituents. And so we can't have a deep barrier between members of Congress and their constituents, but we also have to be cognizant. Remember Gabby Giffords, yesterday Steve Scalise. So these are concerns that we have, but we have to be able to balance the openness and the security.
When it comes to striking the right balance and tone down the rhetoric, neither of you are known for being vitriolic.
No, not between us.
No, but not even.
Good evening, I'm Erin Burnett, and welcome to a special edition of Out Front. Right now, I'm coming to you live from Nationals Park, right here in Washington, D.C. It is, of course, the site of tonight's congressional baseball game, Republicans versus Democrats. It is an annual charity game, and it, of course, has taken on an incredible significance tonight, coming just one day after the horrific shooting at the Republican team practice session in Alexandria, Virginia. Congressman Steve Scalise, the third-ranking Republican in the House, is out of his third surgery tonight. According to a source, he is still in critical condition at this hour after being shot in the hip. To honor him tonight, both teams will wear the same hats supplied by Scalise's alma mater, Louisiana State University. Also badly wounded, the former congressional staffer Matt Micah. He, though, has been upgraded to serious condition in a bit of good news this hour. The British ambassador is going to be throwing out the first pitch any moment now. We're going to bring that to you live. We're also, of course, going to have the introduction of the teams, and I'm sure what will be a very emotional national anthem right here at National Stadium. The shows of unity that we are seeing, of course, are coming amidst some significant developments tonight in the Russia probe. Vice President Mike Pence has just announced that he has hired his own outside counsel to represent him in the investigation. And the President of the United States, President Trump, tweeting furiously today in response to a report that he's under investigation personally for obstruction of justice. Several tweets coming out from the president today, including this. He said it's, quote, a phony story, turning the focus to a familiar target, Hillary Clinton. That's what he was tweeting about today. Out front, now we have our panel, along with Republican Congressman Will Hurd, who sits on the Intelligence Committee, is a former CIA undercover agent. And my panel with me here for the hour, Mark Preston, our senior political analyst, Gloria Borger, chief political analyst, and Chris Cillizza, reporter and editor at large for CNN Politics. Congressman, thanks for being with us. And obviously an emotional moment. We're seeing everybody gathering here. We're going to have the announcements of each of the teams, the first pitch, and of course a very emotional national anthem.
It is. You can feel the energy walking in here. There's more people than ever before. I think the estimates are we're going to have over 25,000 people, which means we're going to raise more than $1 million for charity. This game is a charity game, and we've added a new charity here. It's for fallen officers to help with the bravery that our 2 Capitol Police showed and the Alexandria Police showed a couple of days ago.
What does it mean for you to be here tonight? I mean, this is something most Americans don't even know happens. It's a game that's been happening on and off since 1909, and obviously in recent decades, it's an annual thing. But tonight, it's different.
Tonight, it's very different. Tonight, this is about us showing solidarity, showing that an attack on one of us is actually an attack on our democratic institutions. And the goal for all of us tonight is going to be, can we take this feeling of bipartisanship, can we take this feeling of unity and continue it beyond just tonight? And that's going to be the responsibility of our political leaders, and it's going to be the responsibility of the American people to say we demand that everybody continue to work together.
Look, you are unusual in many ways, one of which is, you have done a lot of bipartisan things. You did a road trip with a Democrat. You come on, you do interviews, and you talk about this investigation, and you're asking tough questions as a Republican, but you're open-minded. I can't say that about all of your colleagues in Congress. And in fact, over the past few days, some people have been blaming the left because the shooter was obviously a Bernie Sanders supporter, a Trump hater, GOP hater. When you hear those sorts of comments, does that upset you, or do you think that there's something fair to it?
Look, we all got to take a deep breath, right? We all have contributed to the divisiveness, right? And one of the things I learned on my road trip is that we agree on more than we disagree, and we should be focusing on those things. But if we want to see different outcomes in our government, we got to change the way we think. And if we change the way we think, we may change the way we behave, and that's going to lead to different outcomes. And I hope everybody uses this as an example to show that bipartisanship's not a dirty word, and that we can disagree without being disagreeable.
And in terms of how things are going to change, I mean, on a physical basis, you've heard a lot of people, look, it's understandable, there's fear. Mm-hmm. And there would be fear, there should be fear, it's natural after what just happened. You're a former CIA agent, you're obviously allowed to carry a gun, you, I'm sure, own a gun. I mean, are you going to change your security because of this? Are you going to be carrying your gun around because you're actually allowed to do that?
Well, one of the things that's natural in a situation like this, and unfortunately I have too much experience with these kinds of activities, it's be afraid, be nervous, be angry. All that stuff is natural. But we also have to realize we can't let this stop us from doing our job, and that's representing the American people. I spent 9.5 years as an undercover officer in the CIA. I've been looking over my shoulder all my life, and I've continued to do that in this job. And I think most of the American people need to realize the number of threats to elected officials, I think, has been increasing over the last couple of years. And Republicans and Democrats are seeing this problem.
So, Congressman, I want to ask you one thing and then bring in our panel. And this is just to the point that tonight is obviously a moment of unity. But then tomorrow, what will happen, right? Republican Congressman Steve King, one of your colleagues, he talked about blaming, at least in part, Barack Obama for the divided political climate that he says actually led to the shooting yesterday. He gave a radio interview, and I just want to play a brief clip. Here he is.
I do want to put some of this at the feet of Barack Obama. He contributed mightily to dividing us.
I agree. Oh, I do agree.
On our differences rather than our things that unify us. And this is some of the fruits of that labor.
What's your reaction when you hear that from your colleague?
Pointing fingers doesn't help, right? We can only control our own actions. We can only control the way we talk about things. And if you want to see a difference, then you have to be that difference, and you have to be that change. So we all should be talking about politics the way we want everyone talking about it, instead of pointing fingers.
All All right, and as you can hear a little bit of the cheering, you have the Democrats coming out to second base. As I said, they're going to be introducing the Democratic team, the Republican team. We're going to have that first pitch, which we anticipate to be from the British ambassador at this time. We'll have the national anthem, which of course we are going to bring to you live. Mark Preston, what's interesting though when you hear Congressman Hurd here, and I think you also have interviewed him, you know, he's someone who does come out very open-minded. But when you hear comments like those from Steve King, what happens tomorrow when we're done this? When we're hearing USA chants right now, not Democrat and Republican chants.
You know, we've seen this in the past, right? We saw this after 9/11 as well, where there was this moment of unity. I remember standing on the Capitol and seeing members of Congress come together on the steps and sing in unison. You know, we saw that again when we saw President Bush go down to Lower Manhattan, stand in the rubble. You know, it was a moment. I think the congressman's right, though. Agreeable people have got to understand that they can be disagreeable. And understand that they're not going to agree on all the big issues, but you got to find places where you actually can agree. I don't have high hopes that partisanship will be erased tomorrow. I think we're going to go back to what it has always been, unfortunately, but here we are.
And of course, as you can see, Democrats there in a moment of prayer as we are getting ready. Let's just listen in for a moment, please. Everyone involved. You see this with Democrats. You're obviously going to see Republicans in a moment, and a national anthem. And I think it's a moment, and part of the reason we're here broadcasting is for Americans to feel how important this moment is for the country.
I mean, you watch these people taking a moment, these members of Congress, praying for the other side, praying for the other team. And we don't see that very often. And I think that of all the people who are here tonight, used to be you root for the Democrats, you root for the Republicans, you heard the chants of USA. People are just want to be here for this moment to applaud the people who have sacrificed. Steve Scalise, who's fighting in the hospital, and for our system. And I think everybody has realized that we all need to take a step back and tone it down. And so I think this game is going to be a celebration of both sides. And honestly, I don't think anybody here is rooting for any team. I really don't.
Chris.
You know, Mark and I, having worked at Roll Call newspaper, which long ago started sponsoring this, that's where we both came from, that's how we know one another. We've been to these games before. At Bowie Bay Sox Stadium and other places. Gloria's right, a little bit of a different moment here for obvious reasons. The one thing I would add to what the congressman said about, is this a moment or is it something more? The reason that you see a lot of statements out of members of Congress on both sides that are not the sort of thing that are going to make this more than a moment is because, unfortunately, voters often reward that. We have a lot of districts in this country. The congressman does not represent one. He represents one very evenly split. Yeah. Actually, a little bit Democratic, correct me if I'm wrong. The problem that you have is that Steve King will pay no political price for a comment like that, and in fact, it may do him some good. And that's a big part of why we have these moments in time that are meaningful, are different, do suggest we have more in common than we have difference, but they are moments rather than any kind of extended period.
And Aaron, if I can add to that, but you've highlighted Steve King, but over the last 2 days, there have been a number of Republicans in plus 27R, plus 30R districts that have said and talked about bipartisanship in a way they've never done that. And same thing for my Democratic colleagues. And so one of the things that I would, ask from y'all, who many people turn to and look for what's really going on, is highlight some of those folks that are actually doing the behavior that we want to see continue. Because there's plenty of examples of that, but we don't always highlight that enough on TV or in
Well, it's a fair point. It's part of the reason you're are standing here tonight, frankly, is we wanted someone like that.
You know, it's interesting because Gloria and Chris and myself have spent a lot of time covering Capitol Hill before going out on the national campaign trail. If you look at Congress 10 years ago, it's much different than what Congress is now, very much more polarized. It's actually refreshing to see someone like Congressman Hurd come in and want to work across the lines, because we are seeing younger members come in that are more polarized, representing districts where they will not pay a price because they are so backed by either the hard right or the hard left.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
It's a different Congress now than it was when we were all covering Congress, not to age ourselves, but people come here for a term or two and leave. Either they're term limited or they self-limit themselves. People don't know each other well because they go home to their districts every weekend because it's demanded of them. There's a lot more pressure on members of Congress because of social media and a constant news cycle that they have to deal with. So there isn't as much time, and Congressman, you can talk about this if I'm right, for members to really get to know each other and appreciate each other. That's why games like this are important, because Republicans can bond with Republicans and with Democrats.
Well, as you were coming out, Congressman, we were talking about the issue of security, and you were saying that you had hosted 400 political public events in the past 2 years. 400. That's not just a security question. That is, as Gloria points out, that is now demanded. And it's important that you do that for your constituents, but it does mean that you're not able to be with the people who are here as much.
Absolutely, but I think everyone's recognizing that. And what I would say about my class and the current class, one of the things that's different than people that are coming here is we've all had backgrounds in other industries, right? We haven't been a career politician, so we have a bias towards action, and that's Republicans and Democrats. And so they bring a different mentality here that we haven't seen in a while, and that's why I'm hopeful for the future, is that there are some of those members that are committed to getting things done.
So we're just hearing the announcement, by the way, of, I believe, the Republican team, and then we'll see what happens then. After that, of course, we're going to have the color guard and the national anthem, and then we'll have that first pitch. Chris, let me ask you about something. The president, we understand, has taped a message. We'll see what happens with this opening pitch. We understand it's the British ambassador. But he's not here tonight. He obviously gave some very emotional comments yesterday about what happened. Today, though, he has been on Twitter 5 times, tweeting about crooked Hillary, a witch hunt, the Washington Post report on Bob Mueller being phony. That's what he has done today.
Right, so what's difficult is, look, you just saw Roger Williams from Texas wearing the TCU, the purple TCU, walking out on crutches because he dove head first into the dugout yesterday morning to avoid someone who was hunting members of Congress. What's difficult is the president does this. It's a boom-bust cycle. He gives a speech that I think anyone, Republican, Democrat, Green, Libertarian, would say, that's kind of the message you want to hear. Let's not focus on anything about what this guy said, this shooter said on social media. Let's focus on the victims and what matters here. And then at 6:55 in the morning, he's on the special counsel. And then at 4:30 in the afternoon, he's on Hillary Clinton, which makes it harder, I think. I hear from a lot of Republicans who say, why don't you guys just focus on the issues? From Democrats who focus on the issues. What's difficult is this is not a private citizen offering his thoughts. This is the single most powerful politician in the country, maybe the world, who is constantly suggesting that his priority in terms of what he feels personally is not this stuff. That said, look, it is a good thing that CNN is here at this game, that we are here, that people are getting to see this. People need to understand, if you don't like the way in which people interact in Congress, you need to elect different people. You need to elect people who are more committed to bipartisanship, who do believe that working across the aisle is a good thing, that compromise is not capitulation. You have to change it at that level. We can't change it from this level. Congressman Hurd can do what he can, but you can't fundamentally alter the makeup of the Congress in a day or a week.
Well, there's also the question, too, of where leadership comes from. And I think, Congressman, the point you're making is it should come from everywhere. The part you're making is it should come from voters, and all of that is true. But it also needs to come from the President of the United States. And it did yesterday. But today, when you get tweets like this, it isn't something that the media can just ignore, that they didn't happen. He is the leader of the country. This is what he has chosen to talk about today, on this day.
But here's what's great about our country. There's co-equal branches of government, and Congress is one of those. And so the president he can say what he wants to say, but our government is actually run by Congress as well, and the judicial branch has a role also. And so that's why we're resilient. That's why we can that's why we can disagree, and that's why we can have a battle of ideas. But we need to make sure that we're talking the ways we want our children to talk, and the way that we want our grandchildren to talk. And it starts with some of the basic things we learned in kindergarten. Be nice to people, right? Be honest.
Right. Well, it isn't things like Crooked Hillary at 4 o'clock in the afternoon today. That's just the reality. That's just a fact.
Well, a couple things. One is I absolutely agree with the congressman about the three branches of government, and I do think we get caught up. At least people look at the White House, they see the president and say it begins with him, ends with him. But the fact of the matter is, in some ways, it does, and he needs to lead by example, and he hasn't led by example. I actually have a lot of sympathy for the congressman here, who, as they're trying to go out and get policy things done, they have to answer questions from us day in and day out about whatever President Trump is tweeting about at his political enemies. That's got to be hard and difficult.
I'm sure it's frustrating.
I'm glad you recognize that. I hope somebody's recording this.
Can I just say, there is nothing more American than baseball. And these are not the boys of summer out here. They are
Maybe
not.
have a summer many summers ago. That is what makes it so wonderful.
But they all came here and did not want to cancel this game.
Right.
Yep.
And I think it is important to point that out.
Right.
And all, as we said, by the way, wearing the same hat.
Yeah,
in honor of Steve Scalia.
And there they are. I mean, this is.
And you know what, Gloria, to that point, they're playing against each other, and they want to have a winner and loser. And in politics, you have winners and losers as long as the game is played fairly. And I think that's important.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, on that note, Chris, they come in tied tonight.
Yeah, well, tied overall, and I would note, because I'm a nerd about these things, Republicans
about
have lost,
professional baseball?
Yes.
That is
Republicans have lost 7. This is the only time this will ever come handy. Republicans have lost 7, 8 games in a row because Cedric Richmond, who's a member of Congress from Louisiana, is an amazing Democratic pitcher. Last year, Republicans won by 1 run, breaking the streak. So it's the tiebreaker. And now I will resign myself to giant nerddom.
They did
District him out of his seat?
No, they did not redistrict.
Jeff Zucker was looking for who could call baseball. You just answered the question.
Not me.
We have some new talent. We have some new talent that's going to be rolled out tonight.
Wait a second. Why are you
Yeah, by the way, now, important question. Congressman Murphy, former CIA agent, used to the dark arts. Why are you here?
Well, I'm a basketball player. I'm a basketball player.
Okay.
So you'll see me in that game.
So this is obviously the Republicans here fanned out as we're finishing the announcement. From this, then, we're going to have the color guard, just so everyone understands where we are. There'll be the color guard, and then the national anthem, and then there will be that first pitch, which, as I said, Chris is supposed to be the British ambassador, but could theoretically change. We'll see.
I'll just say it's striking to think that, literally almost the shooting started at 7:09 yesterday morning, so we're 36 hours and 10 minutes away from that. To be able to do this and have these guys out here. And it is meaningful, and we should stop and take issue. It does speak to resilience. Doesn't make too much of one thing, but it does speak to resilience, persistence, getting knocked down and getting up. Right, 36 hours ago, a man with a rifle was shooting at and struck a member of Congress as well as Matt Micah. A guy who
these members out here. I mean, Congressman Kelly,
U.S. Capitol
Congressman Palmer said he was shot at, aimed at Congress.
Right.
He's there, out there now playing.
And the crowd size is so much larger.
Oh, God.
There were reports today that they were selling 500 tickets an hour. It's not too late, $10 a ticket. Come on, it's for charity. And usually you're not going to draw a crowd size. This looks like, I don't know, 20,000 they were expecting. I can't tell.
Walking
They
around
sold
and getting ready to sit.
So some of them could have people buying to contribute, but many of them are.
Walk right up to the window right now at Nationals Park, get a ticket for $10, and it goes to great causes. And this is a bigger turnout. And I hope now every year, not just this year, but every year, we do this in honor of what occurred.
36 hours. And to Gloria's point, this is a much bigger, more emotional thing than in years past. That said, this is and has been all the way since I remember my girlfriend, now wife at the time, and I doing the three-legged race on Bowie Baysock Stadium in like the middle of the 6th inning in the Congressional Baseball game. This has regularly been a really good event where if you felt that partisanship was crushing, that members of Congress hated one another, they could agree on nothing. This has always been that. It's nice that it's getting, it's a sad way for it to get more publicity, frankly, but it is nice.
It is accomplishment, though. It's also what we learned. You know, they were out practicing at 6:30 in the morning. They were all there. They had been out doing that for a couple of months. I mean, this is something that, you know, they don't just show up that day. They care passionately about it.
They care. It's serious. And I can't put too fine a point on this. The members that a little bit over 24 hours ago saw their life pass before their eyes, right? And that's not going to sink in to everybody today or tomorrow, but it is. And they're going out there. This is part of the healing process for them as well. And think about all the staffers that are here that had one of their own, you know, with a gaping chest wound just yesterday. You know, this is what a lot of people hear, and it's cathartic, and it's good that we're able to all appreciate that. And instead of showing highlights of Steve King, I would suggest you go back and show Roger Williams talking the other day about how this is something to represent those men and women that are still willing to put on a uniform, put themselves in harm's way in order to protect others. We're celebrating.
Just in our defense, we did, I thought, run a great Joe Barton, the manager of the Republican team, and Mike Doyle from Pennsylvania, the manager of the Democratic team, did a press availability in which they spoke in very emotional terms about their own lives. Obviously, Congressman Barton's 10-year-old son was at the practice. So I think that stuff really, people should, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, because it shows that we forget sometimes. Members of Congress, this is dumb, but members of Congress are human beings.
Yes, I think that's right.
And truly affected by this. Members were truly affected by this because they knew they're by the grace of God. And
we're seeing the color guard, just so everyone knows right now, coming out of the umpire's tunnel. This is the color guard. Just a moment ago, Pelosi, Ryan, Schumer, and McCarthy, obviously leadership, were all together, sort of laughing and smiling. And go ahead, as the color guard comes out.
I think there's two very important points, because, you know, we're seen around the world here, and we're often here on CNN, and we're often talking about the division here, and certainly have for the last 150 days, right, here in the United States, between the president, Democrats, Republicans, and what have you. This is a very big moment, I think, for people around the world to see.
And let's just listen in here, and then we'll have a national anthem.
Thank you for showing your support to all of those who are in the performance of the Stars and Banner and God Bless America. Performing the national anthem this evening, we welcome the Congressional Chorus, directed by David Simmons.
Lord.
moment in this stadium, and an impromptu and an emotional moment there, certainly. And the game ball coming out, we're going to see the first pitch in just a moment, and then this game.
Scalise played second base, right? Or was he? Scalise played second base?
He was at second base at the time, that's right.
Now, the congressional chorus obviously had started that national anthem, and then everybody joined in here. Everyone in the stadium, as we were talking about, up to 20,000 tickets sold. That is, we've never seen anything like that in this game. It is an incredible moment. As the players are going back to their dugouts, Democrats and Republicans, we will get ready here for the first pitch. Just standing here, I'm sure when you watch this, you feel this, just with the quietness, but hearing those songs here as Americans, which we all are, was a very special thing.
I've been here many times for Nationals games with my kids, and it is, you don't, it's like a lot of things you take for granted until you don't, you know, and I think, again, I sometimes wish that we could bottle moments like this and send them around to everyone who hates Washington, who hates politics, who hates the media. At the end of the day, we're 99.9% similar and 0.1% different, right? And the politics that we have now accentuates that 0.1%. But moments like this remind you of our similarities. I believe that's Joe Torre.
Joe Torre.
Yes,
That's Joe Torre, yeah.
With MLB, former Yankees manager.
Congressman, did you see who it was who went out before second base and kind of
I didn't
kneeled a little, but that was where Steve Scalise was
absolutely.
When he was hit.
Looks like it's Joe Torre who's going to throw the open pitch here.
I don't think we have to worry about Joe Torre looking like 50 Cent. So
he'll get it there.
I have to say though, in the spirit of political warfare, as a Red Sox fan, why is Joe Torre out there? Okay.
There's a partisanship entering into
Just saying.
So Aaron, you were talking earlier about the songs, right? In those 400 events I did in the last 2 years, I can easily say in half of them, I don't care if I was in Democratic towns or Republican towns, when everybody starts off with singing the national anthem, a lot of times you hear America the Beautiful. It really is one of those things throughout the country. People really care about their country, And if we remember that, I think we're going to always be better off.
I'm still struck by the size of this crowd and people still coming in here tonight.
Yes, which we can see. I don't know if you guys can't see it on television, but it is still a full flow of people coming in right now.
And, you know, they're not going to see Major League Baseball, but they did witness a Major League event here, which is something we don't get to see.
Oh, that's
That's the police.
Yeah.
Capitol Hill police. Who was injured. Who was injured. Yes, that is incredible.
Oh.
Who so heroically rushed, was injured, kept firing, kept running, ran towards the shooter.
36
to try to save the lives of
hours
others.
ago, that
who were
guy
running
was
away.
rushing at a man with a rifle, shooting members of Congress and staff.
Continued after he was.
I mean, that's stunning stuff. Like that's real, legitimate heroism.
I think it's not the first pitch he ever wanted to throw out, but he's sure glad he's doing it, right?
Oh, and he did it with some humor. I mean, it is. And of course, it was David Bailey and Crystal Griner, who were the two Capitol Hill police officers, both injured. She has been in the hospital, recovering, of course. Both of them, heroes, as every single person there has
And
said.
they're both quiet professionals. I've gotten a chance to get to know them over the last 2 years. These are people that care about their country, are true professionals, and these are the kinds of people that you want your son and your daughter to grow up to be.
And by the way, Aaron, quickly, by anyone's account, saved a number of lives that day. I mean, without anyone there like them, we'd be talking, I think, about a very different situation.
And they were there because Steve Scalise, who's a member of the leadership, gets protection.
Yes.
And if they hadn't been there, and you heard Rand Paul say it, you heard other members who were there say it,
yes,
there could have been a very different outcome.
And I think it's important in saying that, you know, the field where they were practicing had a chain link fence around it. There was only one means of egress. And several congressmen have pointed to the fact that they were sitting ducks. They had nowhere to go but that one exit. And these officers saved all of these lives. And Congressman, what I find so incredible is, you know, they go to work with, if this day ever happens, they would be ready.
Yep.
But no one ever expects this day to happen. Never mind on a beautiful day at 6:30 in the morning on a baseball field. And it did, and they were ready.
They were ready. They were ready, and they've been doing that. You know, how many meetings, how many events have they gone to in their career where absolutely nothing happens, and when the time comes, they react.
No, Congressman, if I can ask, what?
This is the video message from the president. Let's listen.
I want to thank members of Congress, their staffs, and baseball fans across the country for supporting tonight's congressional baseball game. This game is always an important moment for both parties to come together to support charity, build friendships, and celebrate our national pastime. But as you all know, tonight's game has taken on a much deeper level of meaning, beyond anything that we would have thought. By playing tonight, you are showing the world that we will not be intimidated by threats, acts of violence, or assaults on our democracy. The game will go on. I want to take a moment to send our thoughts, love, and prayers to Congressman Steve Scalise and his entire family. Steve is our friend, he's a patriot, and he's a true fighter. I know you all will be playing extra hard tonight for Steve. We pray for all of the victims of this terrible crime who are still recovering, including Zachary Barth and Matt Micah, both of whom are respected and cherished by so many. We also pray Special Agents Crystal Griner and David Bailey of the Capitol Police for their heroic deeds that saved so many lives. What a great job they did. And we thank all of the members of the Alexandria Fire, Police, and Rescue. In Washington, we have our disagreements, but we all agree that we are here to serve this nation we love and the people who call it home. That's the source of unity. And more than ever, we must embrace it so that on this special night, I leave you with 3 great American words that for generations have torn down barriers, built bridges of unity, and defied those who have sought to pull us apart. Ladies and gentlemen, let's play ball.
And that, Congressman, is exactly what you would want to hear from the President of the United States, an uplifting, emotional message of leadership.
Right on point, right on point. And this is what tonight's all about. And I think he hit it perfectly. And I think we're going to have fun tonight. I do believe Republicans are going to win tonight. And yeah, you know.
Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, as you said, leadership, Paul Ryan, the leadership together.
And she's wearing an LSU t-shirt.
In honor, of course, of Congressman Scalise. But Chris, you know, that is exactly what the country needed to hear from the president.
It is. Gosh, I don't want to be a downer in a moment like this because I think this is a really nice.
Then don't be, Chris. Don't be a downer.
All right, so I won't be, but I will. Let me just say, Donald Trump needs to understand that statements like this and his Twitter feed are equally important. That's all I'll say. You can't. These two things they are both things coming from the office of the presidency. We need more like this in the statement yesterday, and this is not a partisan statement. We need more as a country. We need to show our children that when things like this happen, the way in which that we react is we come together. We recognize. The Congressman said that at the beginning. Yeah. We're all in this together.
Well, Congressman, I would also say to Chris's point, you know, you're frustrated we play Steve King. Well, part of the reason we do is he has a lot of people listen to him, and also because the president himself was out tweeting. What he was acting like today is very different than what we just heard. But when he does this, it sets a tone for everybody else. This is how to act. This is what's okay. Not that Twitter feed.
Words matter. And I spent a lot of time in schools, middle schools, high schools, and I was recently with a bunch of 6th graders teaching them how to be kind online. Right? And those are the message I tell them. Your words matter. Words can inspire. That's the only thing that actually does. And so I would agree. We all got to choose our words better, and it does start at the top.
And also, I think the floor of the Congress has gotten a lot hotter, a lot more heated than it used to be. And I think that's a real problem. Congress's approval rating is what now? 9, 10, 12%. And so I think that's a lesson for members, because as people watch, whether it's on C-SPAN or whether it's excerpts that we run or other news organizations run, members of Congress are role models and should be role models.
As is the President of the United States.
As is the President.
Leading by example.
And just to understand, do we know why? Obviously, that was a very meaningful and good message that he just sent, but why he wasn't actually here.
It was a security issue, or they said it was a security issue. The Secret Service would not be able to come here and secure this place. I'm not a security expert. The Congressman would know much more. I think you've got to come here. I mean, there's magnometers. This is not an unsecure area. You could have kept them. I will say there are other members of the administration here. Ivanka Trump is here.
Ivanka Trump was here, yeah.
Was here. Gary Cohn is here. Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, is here. Kellyanne Conway. So it's not as if they're not represented, but it would have made a statement if he had showed up.
But there's an increase. Yeah, there's an increased threat to this location. With the number of folks that were here, it was going to make it a lot more difficult for folks to really enjoy the game. And so I think we can't be critical of the president for this. And the fact that he was here and delivered a message is what we should take away. And it was the right message that tonight is about us being Americans.
And Aaron, you know, tonight is meaningful and it matters. But what's more important is how Donald Trump acts
tomorrow morning
tonight.
at 6:55 in the morning.
But it's not only Donald Trump.
No, it's certainly not.
All of us.
It's certainly not.
It's everyone.
But it's not, the moments matter. I remember Mark and I were covering Congress when after 9/11, they came out, they sang. You had a real sense, and I would add after Newtown,
as well. There was that sense that something fundamental had changed. And then the truth is, nothing fundamental changed.
No.
And so it's not about, the moments matter, clearly. But it's about extending the moments into something meaningful. A day is fine, a week is better, a month is better than that.
All right, we're going to take a brief pause, and we will be back here from Nationals Park in Washington with this very special game in just a couple moments.